Alright, it's Sapiens guys, time for another video, and yeah, we got all that shit coming now. Easter almost here already, and like Passover here almost. There already, that stuff is all over television and everything, and I wanted to throw some things at you there. I'm gonna present it to you in a way that you guys, or either me or any of you guys, put some facts out there, some kind of ironic facts out there. In some cases, I think the television preachers are glorifying too much. And in a way, you can't, if people try to accuse you of Alex Jones tinfoil hat bullshit, they're trying to say, oh, tinfoil hat, I don't want to bore you with an entire story yet, but I called some guy on it. And this was few years ago, a YouTuber, and I do a YouTube video about him, doing like this, just to make a long story short. And I forgot about the video, and 3 fucking years later, he's like, what the fuck? And then he gets his friends together, fight me, asshole, and, I heard you were hating on my boy or my man or whatever, you were hating on my friend. I'm like, then I wanted to get around, and then later on, a couple more years passed by, and never got around to telling him off. But anyway, that tinfoil hat stuff, people get mad when I call on it. Here's some good, interesting facts for you, too. Like I said before, the preacher glorifies too much, I'm all for the kids' Easter candy and Easter eggs and all that, but when I talk about Passover, I want to throw some things in parentheses too. I do this right up from memory and from random, in some cases I'll delete a video because I did it too fucking long without getting to the point. But anyway, I wanted to introduce you guys the book Jubilees, called the Little Genesis, which you compare it to the King James Bible Thumper's Bible or NIV Bible that everybody with television religions wants to glorify ritualistic mass killings. And I'm going to throw that in parentheses because I see some irony in how occultic everything is, even what your television religion glorifies. And when you bring up the Passover, one thing I don't, you guys don't know about me, I read the books of Enoch, way before I even had internet, when I was a person, like I said in a video, when I had good paying job and made good money, didn't go out partying, and I had books and CDs. I bought the books of Enoch, and I was reading things like the Key of Solomon and the Occult Agreement of the Two Testaments by Eliphaz Levi, which, even though it says occult, it actually sums up Ezekiel and the books of Revelation. The Bible makes you want to look. But anyway, what I want to say, ritualistic mass killings and blood sacrifices, and unlike what the biblically and scripturally correct wants you to believe you're not allowed to say is, like if they weren't sacrificing babies and sacrificing animals in some holy of holies, I don't care who it is. There was all kind of people. If they weren't doing human sacrifices like your people you glorify in the Bible, before Christ came, there was stonings, and they were more than happy to stone people. And what I'm making a case of what people did to thin the population, and you have to know this stuff before you try to say anybody. There's people, would-bes, that would like to do a purge in this day and age. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so here it goes on with it. What I'm saying is, okay, you want to look at the book of Jubilees, the Little Genesis, and compare it to Genesis and Exodus of your King James Bible, the scripturally correct. And you want to look at there's all kind of pagan groups, Moabites, all this stuff during the time which these sacrifices and stonings and executions were conveniently so they can thin the population, because these kings, knew it was too many people was a strain on resources, and while they're mad, they could maybe confiscate some property and do different things like that. And there was people do as I say, as not as I do. Their relatives, they were granted pretty much like uh, immunity. Nobody, they could do whatever they want. So was nepotism was involved. Their relatives were protected. Um, okay, you want to look in the Bible. It says there was like when the Jews were in captive. Pharaoh. Everybody knows the story. Maybe God had a sense of humor, right? And Moses, as a baby, got slipped right in, and they were trying. I think I also disagree. In parentheses, I don't want to get too off the subject. They were trying to say Moses was a stutterer, but in the Charlton Heston movie, they made Moses, pretty smart. I mean, he was groomed to be, a military leader and everything. And I make my case that, like some of us talk in videos, we have to do our videos over. For example, you don't always stutter. You're smart, but there's a quirk in what you're saying. You know what I mean? And you can probably picture Moses later, speaking a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe you can be articulate, but yet there's stuff there. So I don't agree on that. But anyway, during the time, Pharaoh wanted to stop a chosen one, but everybody knows Moses got in there in the water, and somebody had a sense of humor, and because they want to regulate the population, the slave population. Too many are straying on the resources. And a YouTube video I keep referring to, the story of your enslavement, always said that there's a certain slave population. The whip, even with the whip, it took still taskmasters. It took a lot of resources and manpower as in taskmasters to control. But the story of your enslavement video, talking in parentheses, says make people choose their getting people to choose their occupation, and talking about how ancient Rome, more money for Rome, people were slaves but were given the capacity for creativity a little bit, but you could still be executed or tortured and all that. But anyway, Pharaoh wanted to regulate the population conveniently, and you can say to religious people, they had their superstitions, or if you want to call it that, and wanted to eliminate a chosen one before slave body gets riled up. They thought that too. And you want to say what Jesus, King Herod, wanted to kill Jesus right before he was conceived. He was scared of that. Yes, you can say that. I'm not arguing against that. But even King Herod, that was an excuse at the same time, conveniently, to thin the population, kill a bunch of babies. They want to stop some chosen one, maybe stop that. A very narcissistic, egotistic king, sociopath. You were to get more of those, like Ivan the Terrible, in a future like that. We know that, boiling people alive. But yes, you don't want to. The Bible thumpers accuse you of blasphemy or either. Yes, they were trying. Herod was trying to get over. But yes, it was another excuse. He wanted to knock off a bunch of people because certain kings were like that. Too many people in the population, strain on resources. So they were glad to execute people for things. Anything just to thin out the population, you know what I mean? So you got that there. And then you want to talk about things outside the Bible. I want to throw in there too, and observe it. I'm trying to say any culture, whether it was, I don't care what it is, whether it was a religion, like a pagan religion, but like in the Bible, your Moabites and your other people sacrificing the fertility gods. These gods were set up by the chiefs, the hierarchies of these things, they got the common sheep to believe it, but it was a way to regulate the population, And then, like the story of your enslavement video on YouTube says, gifts and payments were handed out to the propaganding class, the brutalizing class, the enforcing class, police and all that stuff too. That was true in Pharaoh's days. That was true in King Herod's days. And then now we move how the population evolved. Take in consideration, I talk this all the time. That's why I make a video like this. If you got this far in a video, places that were islands, Like, you ever see the Tori Amos CD called Boys for Pele? And, I want to use that for example. There was islands out there, like, way back in there, throwing babies in volcanoes, right? And since you had a fucking island, right? Even an island that was pretty big, chiefs and kings, they had these gods, or whatever, too. I was watching Expedition Unknown last night, too, where we're talking about the Mayans, the Aztecs, and all that. That they had, they were doing these sacrifices for, because there was these water holes that they were in. They thought it was a gateway to the gods, and the gods would keep giving them more water. Yeah, some of them believed that, but yet at the same time, the people that created these gods and did this, knew that too many people in the population were straying on these water supplies and food supplies. And what if they had whatever grain they were growing? If they had a period of lesser growth or even famine. I mean, there was even cases where, like I said, people cannibalized. So it was not just their gods, it was that, but they wanted to thin out the population because they were dealing with the population, the strain on resources. Even Hitler did that, even though it was just because of Jews. He didn't just kill Jews, he killed the handicap of his own kind. If you were handicapped, and everything else. And, but anyway, an island, okay, you get, you want to make an argument with islands, like throw babies in volcanoes and things like that. Imagine you were punished by death if you did a certain infraction, if you're an adult. But since it's an island, even if you have bigger islands, they knew whatever was growing, what you're eating, or any kind of thing out there. People, if you're an island, you fished, you probably ate whatever was on the island. Coconuts, pineapples, maybe you hunted, fished. And there were a period of abundance, and you had a period of even famine, So on an island, you don't want the population to get too big. They didn't want that. So you had these chiefs, right, that they had the right to, have sex with whoever they wanted or whatever, too. But everybody else, of course, wasn't. And, they allowed some of them to a certain extent, but just like going back to Moses and slaves, and somehow during Moses' days, how hardly they were worked, they were probably given some time off. And God, they actually had enough energy to actually have sex and make babies. Did Moses give them time off or what, And there was a case, too, like that there was debt slaves way back then, too, where people took over a nation, it was slavery, but at the same time, the people that weren't full-blown slaves, I think that the people that took over nations, they conveniently made sure that these people were brought into massive debts. If they weren't slaves yet, then conveniently slaves. So, but anyway, an island, they knew the population would explode too big, you know what I mean, too. And there's certain people that wanted to have sex as much as they want and get rid of babies, Where you're hearing that about somebody I was working with was talking about places somewhere around the Vatican. There was bones of babies somewhere. And then, you got to imagine the people that died of plagues and all that in all these parts of Europe. Some of it was babies, but then you had the Great Plagues. But yet there was probably among the bones in them catacombs, all the other killings. But yet you had the plagues, which we could have that again, what I mean? The biggest purge you'd have to worry about up to now can be if we have accidents with that nuclear shit that's a matter of time. Or a super virus, there's a likelihood. So I'm talking in terms of that rather than this tinfoil hat looking at every single leader there's going to be a purge. I think the likelihood is a little higher that natural disaster, you have earthquakes, floods that are killing people and making people homeless, fires all over the place, terrorism. Oh, and another thing in parenthesis too, our countries were trying to defeat ISIS. I mean, you get people that are these extremists out there. ISIS was taking over entire countries and murdering people. They wanted to take over that whole area, maybe even the whole world. What do they want to do? A purge. Anybody that wasn't them. When they take over the resources, what the fuck do you think they're going to do? use their law of their religion as a justification to purge whoever they don't like. So, oh yeah, is that really tinfoil hat shit? You know what I mean? And now we got people, like, say, in our own country that have a voice in places now too. Oh, unlike the biblical mass killings of that too, where you had Samuel told Saul he had to kill all these people and don't leave anybody alive, and he didn't, and Saul took away the leader and gave it to David. Well, there's a thing I'm saying in parentheses too. Now, it compares to like any kind of wars now, where you have a, like Neil Young said in Rockin' in the Free World, our country has a kinder, gentler machine gun hand. Yeah, we help people, but sometimes with ulterior motive, our governments do. You know what I mean? And then, but yet, when we're some in our country, we send soldiers places. Damned if we do, damned if we don't, because you have a problem with terrorism. That shit happened. We got to be careful now that we don't get accused of war crimes. There was no war crimes tribunals back in the biblical days, back in medieval days, the Dark Ages. There was a point where people did a sweep, you know, whether it was knights, soldiers, or whatever, back in where the biblical times or medieval times, a sweep and just took everybody out instead of taking prisoners. You know what I mean? Just wiped everybody out and then domesticate everybody. And then to a point like when, you know, the Age of Enlightenment and post-medieval times happened, classical music started coming up, you know, like they were outlawing sword carrying. But yet the elitists, what you call it now the elitists, I mean, I have a video, one of my favorite videos out there, parts of reclaiming, if you want to look at a clip on YouTube, reclaiming the blade, you can say now you're elitists. Yeah, they're real good at old school sword fighting. They're a lot of them out there that, well, you had it back then, you know, post medieval times, Age of Enlightenment. They started a lot of cultures, or even your samurai cultures. That was post medieval, but you know, you had samurais. That's a lot of other shit. Then you had these other people, you know, they're fighting with the different sword use, with the sword, the weapon type, and armor type. They would, instead of going to different kind of swords, they were going to more things that were more swiftful, that you could sidestep each other and stick them, so to speak, and parry real quick, you know. You want to look at the movie The Count of Monte Cristo, one of the newer movies, you know this. But I don't know, just certain, I'm not totally historically correct all the time, but you get, yeah, along with it anyway, the elitists, oh yeah, they were training privately, you know, masters of sword fighting, but as soon as they domesticated everybody, they outlawed carrying the swords. And hey, if they wanted to do a sweep on people, even people that didn't do nothing wrong, you know, they don't want anybody carrying any swords or training, unless you're a soldier. It was a big crime. They wanted to just, if they wanted to abduct you, aka arrest, or have you killed, they don't want you making it hard for them. You know, you're not going to be, they didn't want that. But then it was, you know, and in those times, you know, they had people wanting to cling to the state. You got your modern day people that are well paid right now. Your television religions glorify this stuff. Oh, it was biblical, okay. You know, oh, Abraham, you can hear a disembodied voice that says to sacrifice your son, even though it didn't happen, but you had to obey God. Get the fuck out of here, you know. People, yeah, there was people in the news who heard disembodied voices now to go kill kids. You know what I mean? You had a disembodied voice, you better tell it to get the fuck out of here, or you better seek professional help and medications, put it that way. So, but like I said, you know, you had very well-paid people that preached stuff that was literally ritualistic mass murder, but yet the people in power, the shift of people in power did it. People had to do, get them before they get you, you know. Different people taking power, you know what I mean, too. Even some people that somewhat meant well. Well, we got a thing where you got terrorism now. Our country could be accused of this, but yet you got a breed of people now that are like suicide bombers and all that. We're kind of getting rid of those, and then they're getting accused conveniently by somebody else. Oh, that should be a war crime. But yet, if that group got its way, oh, they wouldn't be accused of wood crime now, of war crime now, would they? Now, what kind of shit is that? Um, but yeah, I think I about like covered everything there. See what else was there. Damn it, there was one other thing in the back of my mind that I wanted to point out, but yeah, it was a lot of shit. If I think of it, I'll just splice it to this video. But yeah, it's like very convenient that this stuff was actually put in place.